That's like our bread and butter is kind of going after an industry that has been unregulated for a long while.
All right.
The internet pornography.
Now, you're a nonprofit. Who's on your board, by the way? Just curious.
Family, friends. I'll say that much.
Well, that's probably a good idea. So talk about
Yeah.
just 2 minutes on this. CIA, former FBI. Anyone could put anybody in jail. Give us the.
Yep.
This was the video that was released yesterday. Give us the headline. Give us what people should know about this. This is remarkable. This is a, quote, contracting officer with the CIA. Is he just bragging to impress the gay date, or is what he's saying have some veracity to it?
Well, people, I think it's both. I don't think he's embellishing. We don't publish things that we don't believe are true. He reveals that. So this is a CIA contracting officer. That means that he makes the $1 million contracts across government agencies for the CIA. And he talks about how they can put anybody in jail by setting them up. And the funny thing is, he says, we get just to the line of entrapment. And he says, we call it a nudge. So the fact they have a pet term for this, they have a pet term, a euphemism for entrapment, it means that, this is a thing that goes on, that they've made a term for. He also talks about the FBI conspiring to go after Alex Jones to take his money away, basically chop his legs off, is what he says. And then, oddly, for what we believe is the first time, he admits that there were undercover FBI agents January 6th, and that he actually works with some of them at the CIA. It's just interesting because Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, has continually declined to acknowledge that there were, even just any passive FBI agents there. And it's kind of remarkable because like I said, this is not exactly our bread and butter sound investigations. Mm-hmm. We were, I don't think I've told anybody this yet besides James, but we were actually not going for this type of story. But when an undercover journalist runs into somebody who works for the CIA, you don't turn down the meeting. And the guy starts talking.
Listen, I saw this guy. He strikes me as, to be honest, slightly mentally ill. I mean, it's a good thing you're exposing mentally ill people. But I guess the question I always get asked, and let's talk about this for a moment, is, quote, nothing ever happens to these people. Have you gotten any reaction from him? Has he commented on this video? Have you gotten a reaction from the FBI, the CIA? A peep out of them? Has he been promoted, demoted, fired, escorted out of the building, so to speak? What's been the reaction?
Well, we haven't been able to reach him. He's shut down all of his social media now. And as for things that happened, I know Mike Lee was talking about it. I believe there's some upcoming. I'm not like a policy wonk or anything, so I don't want to speak out of turn. But I know there's some upcoming government oversight on some of these three-letter agencies. What happens? I'll say, as for what he said about Alex Jones, again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how to affect things, but Alex Jones, I happened to see today, said that he's talking to 4 law firms about what legal action he thinks he can take. Sounds like he might launch a lawsuit, might affect his thing. So, remains to be seen. And we have a part 2 coming up.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Eric Cochran, who worked with me at Project Veritas. He was my raidee. Is that a thing? Raidee. Why do they call it a raid? The FBI did they break your door? No, you opened the door for them, right?
I was fortunate to wake up, and actually I turned on my undercover camera that morning. I was just barely awake enough to turn on my undercover camera and got some rare footage of the FBI agents raiding me.
Yeah, that was a key fob camera, correct?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, the key fob camera raid footage. This is actually shot by Eric Cochran in New York.
November 4th, and the first thing I did was grab my undercover camera.
So anyways, Eric, last question. You're listening to Eric Cochran, leader of Sound Investigations, worked with me at Project Veritas, got this FBI deep state guy to say that he's trying to give people a nudge and trap people. The government can legally entrap, by the way. Citizens cannot entrap, but the government can. A lot of people say nothing ever happens to these people, and nothing, in other words, they should be jailed, incarcerated. what is the accountability mechanism? Because I think the videos that you're doing, that we're doing, is the only, I mean, I believe it's the only thing left that actually does matter, but there's a lot of cynicism out there. How do you contend with that?
Well, Sound Investigations just over the, we haven't existed for a few months, and we've already gotten a lot of, you can go to soundinvestigations.com and read the full report on things we've gotten. Obviously, you've gotten, back in the Project Veritas days, like, we got people in jail. But even beyond that, like, let's just say the story ends up, going nowhere. I think the fact that people understand and can take better life decisions on how they understand the government, maybe even career paths. I think that the public's knowledge of these facts is worth it in itself. But I think we are seeing more and more changes. I would not be sacrificing what I had to make this happen if I didn't believe this was the most effective path, and you as well, of course. And now, I see, your video. I again, like, I want to say, like, anybody who's doing this kind of journalism, like, has to give total credit to you. Like, you pioneered this, and now in your latest video, I see this is I see this is what appears to be a citizen journalist, like somebody who came to you.
Yes,
and
Eric.
said, like, I was able to get this. You're bringing
Eric,
up for people
for queuing this up. Eric, can you stay on for like another 10 minutes?
Absolutely.
All right, so we're going to go to the Federal Reserve. This is the breaking story, everyone. I apologize for being a little late. That's how it always works. There's always technical issues because we're going after the Securities and Exchange Commission. By the way, that's next week's video. This week's video is the Federal Reserve. Donald Trump posting on Truth Social today, quote, this is literally today. What a providential thing that happened. Quote, inflation is back and raging. The Fed will never be able to credibly lower interest rates because they want to protect the worst president, he's referring, I think, to Biden, in the history of the United States. This is Trump today on Truth Social. And then we have news today from Axios that hot inflation is back. We unpack what the Consumer Price Index report means for consumers, markets, and the Fed. At the end of last year, inflation seemed to be falling decisively. A quarter of the way through 2024, however, that outlook is in doubt. The data coming in out of the labor market in today's inflation report shows concerns of racing too soon to cut. There are still embers of inflation here and in the economy. So we got Trump tweeting about inflation. Trump tweeting, it's not a tweet. What is it called on Truth Social? Is that called a post? Okay, a post. Trump posting that they want to, the Federal Reserve. I don't know how, did Trump find out about our video before we posted it? I didn't send it to him. Trump posting the Federal Reserve wants to protect Biden, and the Fed will never be able to credibly lower interest rates. So, Eric Cochran queued it up. Cue the citizen journalist, whose name I will not disclose and who's never worked with me before, bravely going on a couple meetings with the principal economist inside the Federal Reserve. Because if we haven't pissed off the Ethereum crypto mafia, and if we haven't pissed off the White House, and if we haven't pissed off the FBI, and if we haven't pissed off the CIA, let's go after the Federal Reserve Bank, shall we?
Yes.
Yes. When I say go after, we're not going after anybody. We're just quoting them. But let's see what they have to say. This is principal economist at the Federal Reserve. Let's find out who he is.
Are you a senior researcher or economist? What's your title?
So I came here as a senior economist, and now I'm principal economist.
So you're now a principal economist.
Yeah. So right now I'm preparing for something. I'm going to do
This is a man named Aurel Heismo, principal economist, real estate, finance section, research and statistics, Federal Reserve Board, Washington, D.C. He helps write Jerome Powell's speeches.
And what's your expertise? What's your specialty? Sorry.
I was a finance professor.
Meet Aurel Heismo. He's a principal economist working inside the Federal Reserve. He's worked at the Federal Reserve for 7 years and 8 months. He was an assistant professor of finance at the NYU Stern School of Business. This is not a low-level employee. We've heard that before. Aurel says he's a former finance professor. He's got a PhD in economics from Duke, an MA in economics from Duke, and a BS in economics from St. Louis University. And we actually are showing his, guys, is this on Rumble? Can we see this? We're actually looking at the screenshot from LinkedIn. And also, this is on the Federal Board Reserve website. Later in the show, we're going to call him for comment. That's my favorite part of being a journalist, when they contradict themselves. and is called on as a subject matter expert to write speeches for Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Board of Governors for the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve... All right, let's see what he has to say about Donald Trump here. Legacy of Jerome Powell. Gizmo, principal economist for the Federal Reserve, says Jerome Powell wants to go down in history as someone who, quote, held the line against Donald Trump, unquote.
He's doing it for the legacy. He wants to be remembered in history as like...
You think he wants to be remembered for what he's done? He wants to go down in history.
Yeah.
As what?
As somebody who held the line against like Trump and like somebody who like helped the economy.
Jerome Powell wants to go down in history as someone who, quote, held the line against Trump. I'm not sure what that's about, but we're going to break this down with some reactions. We're going to play more of this tape first.
Out of COVID, like, drag, we've done it. I mean, it's pretty amazing we haven't had a recession, to be honest. Like, after COVID, like, everything shut down. The economy's just keep going up. Stock market's going up. Like,
economy's going up, stock market's going up, but this is about stopping Trump.
So he wants to preserve his legacy as someone, as a savior for America.
Wants to be a savior. Stop Trump.
And kept us out of a recession.
yeah.
And fought against Trump.
Yeah. And you know, like...
He also says this about Trump.
He's a crazy person. It's very clear. I mean, he's a dumb guy.
What?
I mean, just like what you say about him. Like, that's
Right.
the same thing as you say about Trump. You say, like, Trump is just weird. Like,
Weird or
just stupid.
you're liberal, right?
He's Trumper.
No. But you're
I'm a liberal.
okay. So you're Biden, right?
What do you mean, everybody?
Like you support Biden.
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Like Trump hates him.
So this is Orel saying that Powell hates Trump.
Trump wanted to fire him, like,
Yeah.
but he couldn't.
Trump wanted to fire Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank, but he couldn't because...
Does he hate Trump? And like, is the feeling mutual?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. So Trump, Trump nominated him and Congress approved it. And then as soon as he became chair, Trump wanted him to lower interest rates.
As soon as he became chair, Trump wanted to lower interest rates.
Because we lower interest rates,
Right.
stimulate the economy.
Yeah.
And Trump was president, he wanted to stimulate the economy.
Right.
But he wouldn't do it.
Powell wouldn't do it.
He started raising interest rates.
Started raising interest rates, doing the opposite of what Trump wanted.
All the loopholes to fire him.
Trump tried to find loopholes to fire Jerome Powell. This is what Orel Gizmo is saying. Orel Gizmo, the principal economist at the Federal Reserve Bank in Washington, D.C.
So they don't get along. So does he get along with Biden?
He does, with the Biden administration.
Yeah.
Biden would want the interest rates to go lower.
Biden wouldn't want the interest rates to go lower, says Orel Gizmo.
Yep.
At the same time, he doesn't want inflation.
Okay.
Inflation is bad. Everybody's complaining
But
about
inflation is not really an issue anymore, is it?
Well, that's because we've been increasing rates for a little while.
That's because we've been increasing rates for a while in response to inflation. Still isn't an issue. He also talks about how everything that happens at the Federal Reserve is, quote, classified. Classified. We're not sure what he means by that. Let's listen to that section.
I'm just really worried that I'm saying stuff. Like stuff that's classified. Like, I just don't want to.
Oh, okay.
So we just
Do you deal with classified stuff?
It's all classified.
It's all classified. He's really worried that he's talking about things that are... Isn't classified a federal government thing? And the Federal Reserve is private. So that's the first question. Second question is a rhetorical question, is what is he doing blabbing to a stranger about all the so-called classified stuff? There's also other parts of this video. He wrote the speeches. He also talks about discriminating against conservatives. Let's listen to this. Orel Gizmo, principal economist at the Federal Reserve, says, quote, people think conservatives are dumb, and that the, quote, Federal Reserve would discriminate against those conservatives depending on how out there they are, unquote.
I don't think there are any conservatives.
Do you work with any?
I don't think so. All the people I work with are academics.
He's asked, do you work with any conservatives? Orel Gizmo, economist, Federal Reserve. All the people I work with are academics. None of them are conservative.
Do you think they'll be treated differently in your organization?
People think they're dumb. Like,
Yeah. Would they be like discriminated against?
and it depends on like how out there though are.
When asked if they'll be discriminated against, Aurel Gizmo says, well, that depends. Like, about how conservative they actually are. I want to know what he means by that. This is a long video. This is a 17-minute long video. I'm not going to play all of it. It's up on X. You can watch all of it. There's a lot of questions here, and I do have another video of this guy coming out later. But I like to cut the puppy dog tail a little bit off at a time. I like not to fire all my ammunition at once. I like to catch them in the lie, and let's just say the cover-up is worse than the crime. That's always how it works. It's the deception is the story. The lying is the story, as much as the story is the story.
So the problem with Trump is that you can't have Trump's voters are not voting for him for which.
This is the Aurel Gizmo quote. It's a little hard to hear over the radio because we're streaming on all the platforms. For those of you just listening on X, quote, the problem with Trump is that you can't have the Trump supporters are not voting for him for logical reasons. This is the academic, the PhD in economics from Duke, the guy who writes Jerome Powell's speeches. You might say, well, how do I know that? Well, that's because he told us that. Aurel talked about how he worked on the section of the speech regarding the Fed's portfolio.
By the way, after our last date, I actually went and I watched the whole speech that he gave, Powell gave.
Oh my God.
Wait, I want to know, which section did you help him write?
Oh, this girl's good. This is a first-time undercover reporter, ladies and gentlemen. She's never done this before. And she went back on the second meeting and asked, hey, I went back and read that entire speech. This is apparently a speech Jerome Powell gave in March of this past month called FOMC. This is the Federal Open Market Commission. We actually looked the speech up, by the way. Found the portion of it that he actually wrote on the portfolio side, he says. Talking about the portfolio side of the Fed.
I have different rounds of edits for different people. So like by the time if I'm working on the Fed's saying ideas about like what are they going to do with say like what are they going to buy or with the portfolio side.
The FOMC, or Federal Open Market Committee, reviews economic and financial conditions. And he talks about how the Fed is moving away from just affecting interest rates to doing things like climate change, racial equality, equity, and other stuff like that. Aurel Gizmo, principal economist at the Federal Reserve, talks about how the Federal Reserve has changed to think about environmental issues, equity issues, and racial equality.
Even though he's Republican on paper,
Yeah.
Democrats don't love him.
Yeah, because he's responsive. I mean, like under Powell, the Fed has changed to think about equity issues, like racial issues, think about wealth inequality as part of the mandate, as part of the things we're following.
Yep.
Think about climate change.
What has Powell done with climate change?
So he hasn't done anything himself, but like he creates an environment to foster like research in that area, to foster discussion in the area where like it's a friendly environment where we can hire climate scientists.
So responsive. Powell is responsive. The question is responsive to what? Responsive to whom? Who exactly is Jerome Powell responding to? Quote, under Powell, the Fed has changed to think about equity issues, racial issues, and climate equality. Fascinating stuff. Hey, Eric Cochran, are you still there? We still have Eric on the line?
Yep.
What's your reaction to this academic inside the Federal Reserve Bank talking about Trump, talking about equity? What do you think the headline is?
Well, like, I found it so interesting that he seems more concerned, or he seems to describe Jerome Powell as more concerned with his image and like the optics versus doing his job and helping, and actually, thinking about the American public. Like he says, there was a quote in there. He says, there's all kinds of stuff that comes to Jerome Powell's desk that he says no, because it's going to jeopardize his legacy, and it's going to jeopardize his legacy as the chair of the Federal Reserve. And it's like, well, shouldn't he be more thinking about the merits of what's on his desk? Like, what stuff is it on his desk?
I mean, I don't know what this whole business about savior is. What do you think about that savior quote? What is that about?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of speaks to bureaucrats' egos, I suppose. A lot of these people, I'm not an expert. I've never worked in government, but it seems like these bureaucrats sometimes, they start thinking about their own egos again instead of thinking of themselves as civil servants.
I think we should go ahead and call Aurel Heasmo on the air. What do you guys think? Should we do that? I'm going to go ahead and call Aurel Heasmo. And ladies and gentlemen, this is live. This is crazy. We're exposing Eric Cochran just exposed the FBI. Now we're going to go and call Aurel Heasmo to see what he had to say for himself. Let's see how this goes.
Okay. All right, ready? 1 second. Check. Yep, good. Ready? Okay. Look at this guy right here. What's this one doing here? Lots of traffic.
Hold on.
Yes. It's all right. You ever know? You ever know? So many people. Okay.
We're having some technical issues here. Stand by.
We reached out to Aurel Heasmo, principal economist at the Federal Reserve, and asked him for comment. Here's what he had to say.
I'm just getting this audio queued up. 1 minute. This is us calling Aurel Heasmo, and we're going to play a little bit of this recording here.
Audio. I hear you. You ready? Yep, ready.
Hey, are you Grace's friend? Are you Grace's friend? She's on the phone here. Yeah. Go ahead. Grace, go ahead.
Hey there. Hey, is this Aurel?
Who's this?
Hey, this is Grace's friend, James. Aurel? Aurel, can you hear me?
Not responding. It's mute.
Hello?
I don't know who you are.
You know Grace? Aurel?
Yeah?
Hey, Grace actually works for me. My name is James O'Keefe. We're doing a story on the Federal Reserve, and you're on tape talking about Jerome Powell, who you work for, and you saying that his legacy is to stop Trump. So I just wanted to get some more information about what you meant by that.
I never said that.
I can quote you if you'd like.
He hasn't hung up the
No,
phone.
I never said that.
We have you on tape.
I would never say that.
We have you on tape saying a bunch of things about Donald Trump. You said, quote, held the line against Donald Trump. Did you not say that?
No.
You're saying you did.
I'm not commenting on this.
Well, you already did comment. You said that Jerome Powell, who you work for, you are a principal economist at the Federal Reserve, aren't you?
I'm not talking anymore.
Well, you already did talk to Grace, my friend. You sung like a canary. You told her that Jerome Powell wants to go down in history as someone who, quote, held the line against Donald Trump. What do you mean by that?
I did not say that at all.
I have you on video saying it.
He's denying that he said the things that he said. Liar.
No, I'm not commenting on any of this. I didn't say anything.
Or are you lying now, or are you lying then?
I'm not lying. I'm not giving you any comments.
You already did. I have 75.
I don't talk about Jerome Trump. Jerome Powell.
Who's Jerome Trump? Who's Jerome Trump? Is that like a love child between Jerome Powell and Donald Trump? Is that like a splicing experiment gone wrong?
Who's Jerome Trump?
Jerome, it's not my place to talk about it.
Did you not write part of Jerome Powell's speech for the Federal Reserve Bank?
No.
You didn't?
That's the worst lie I've ever heard. No! I didn't write that. Man. This guy has a security clearance? No, it's a private bank. His information is classified. He's lying like a rug. Typical behavior. Freudian behavior, actually, if I may say so. Carl Jung, the shadow has been revealed.
No.
You didn't write a speech? We have a copy of the speech. You talk about it in the video.
No.
Now you're just lying, and you're just saying the opposite of everything you said.
No, I haven't said anything. I don't know who you are. I think you're just making stuff up. I haven't said anything about Jerome Powell. I don't talk to Jerome Powell. I don't know what he's doing.
Do you work for the Federal Reserve?
I'm not talking to you anymore.
Are you a principal Sir, are you a principal economist at the Federal Reserve?
We're here at a stoplight. Guys, I'm not talking to you anymore. You can stop it.
You already did talk to us.
He's not going to comment. He commented endlessly. I mean, why not just be honest?
You said the Fed has changed to think about equity issues, racial issues, wealth equality, climate change. You said that Powell creates an environment for that sort of thing. He's responsive. My question is, who is Powell responding to? Who is he responding to, sir?
I'm not going to talk to you anymore.
You already did talk to the woman that works for me.
Sure.
Why do you say all this stuff to a stranger, but you won't talk to me?
I don't know who you are.
My name is James O'Keefe. I'm an investigative reporter, and you're on hidden camera saying all the things you just told me you didn't say.
I'm not commenting on anything.
You already did comment, so you might as well help the American people out by explaining to them what you meant by all those statements.
I'm not a Federal Reserve official. I cannot talk for anybody from the Federal Reserve. So if you ask me, you're just wasting your time.
You didn't.
It's a complete waste of time to talk to you.
It's not a waste of time. You're a principal economist with the Federal Reserve. Isn't that your title, sir?
I don't really know. I don't talk to Jerome Powell. I don't know what drives him. I don't know anything.
Sir, are you a principal economist? That's what it says on the Federal Reserve website.
Get in his car here, James. Sir?
Hello?
Get in his car.
There you have it.
There's Jerome Powell's principal economist getting into the car to drive away. If you're just tuning in, that was the first ever, that we just played that live on the air. That was the call we had with Jerome Powell. There's also a video that we're about to release imminently. Jerome Powell's principal economist, whose name is Aurel, principal economist Aurel Gizmo, talking about how the Federal Reserve is changing to think about environmental issues, equity issues, racial equality, saying that the entire purpose of Jerome Powell is a legacy to be a savior to stop Trump. Well, that was just him denying that he said all those things on tape. Insane. I don't even know what to say. Except sometimes this stuff just speaks for itself. It's like light versus darkness. So, we're about to get to the Ethereum gate. All this sort of fits together. The circle is now complete. We have the Ethereum gate last week. We have the Federal Reserve being exposed this week. Principal economist on tape denying what he said. We have a Securities and Exchange whistleblower coming out very shortly. In just about a minute from now, we're going to go to Stephen Narioff and the rest of the crew who's standing by. Thanks for your patience. And I'll just be with you after just this short message. Not a week goes by without a news headline about potential medical supply shortages, threats to our infrastructure or power grid. And you remember what they pulled during the last pandemic. Certain medications were mysteriously out of stock. No way will I ever let that happen again. In today's unpredictable world, it's all about being prepared for who knows what they have in store for the next pandemic. Our friends and supporters at the Wellness Company have designed this unique, prescription-based medical emergency kit that is packed with 8 potentially life-saving prescription-only medications, including Z-Pak and ivermectin, which I used myself while on the road and starting to feel a bit under the weather. Health is everything, and this is a great opportunity to order a Wellness Company Medical Emergency Kit. The Wellness Company Medical Emergency Kit stands ready to treat over 30 common ailments, ensuring you'll have access to vital medications when you need them most. And now save $45 per kit when you order using the code OMG. Get ready to write this down. Get your Wellness Company Medical Emergency Kit at twc.help/OMG. That's twc.help/OMG. That's twc.help/OMG. And save $45 per kit today when you use code OMG. Okay, we are back. We're going to go to the Ethereum gate scandal. Stephen, are you with me? Stephen Narioff, are you there?
Yes, James, I'm here.
Hey there, Nick Sorter, is Nick Sorter on? Well, why don't you kick it off, Stephen, and talk about part 2 of this scandal. Well, I guess first, Stephen, I'd like your reaction to the Federal Reserve tape that we just listened to, and this guy denying what he said. What are your thoughts on that whole situation?
Well, it's kind of timing is interesting because we were just on another podcast. We were looking back And in 2014, the Federal Reserve, talking about social policy, they were looking into crypto, and we met with them back then. So it's not surprising to me. And what was really interesting about what I just said was they did an interagency task force across the entire U.S. government, and they spoke to basically line employees. Except for the Federal Reserve, they specifically spoke to the governors of the board of the Federal Reserve.
Interesting. What do you think about the substance of what this guy has said about the legacy to hold the line against Trump and that sort of thing?
Well, I think that's very similar to the policy. Actually, I put policies in quote, because these are not official policies; these are rogue agencies that have their own agenda, and so. They want, Trump had certain policies in place that I believe are actually very beneficial for the economy, and I think there was a dual mandate. It intersects with my story very much, and one was to stop it, so his popularity would go down, and so the second part was so that they would be able to capture and he was trying to uncapture these agencies, which are really just when I say capture, I mean they're controlled by the incumbents. In this case, it would be like banks, for example, in the Federal Reserve.
So we're on with Stephen Narioff. We did a story last week about ETHgate. He's responding to the Federal Reserve. The timing is providential. Donald Trump posting today that inflation is back and raging because they, quote, Federal Reserve wants to protect the worst president, he means Biden, in the history of the United States. That post was today. Inflation is up. Stephen, we're going to talk about ETHgate for about 20 minutes. Tell us, and I think we have a few people joining us. We got Nick Sorter joining us in a minute. Alan Dershowitz was here. I don't know where he went, but if you're still there, Alan, and you want to jump on to talk about how this corresponds with the so-called deep state, tell us about the evidence that you have, because you've told me and told others that there's a connection to the Chinese Communist Party and SEC corruption. We've covered this possible false prosecution by multiple agencies against you. But maybe you can talk to me about the next iteration of what evidence you have about the Ethereum gate scandal.
Yes, so everybody should know, yesterday I filed what's called an FTCA, Federal Tort Claims Act, suing the government in the amount of $9.6 billion in damages. That stemmed from a prosecution that was a fabricated case that actually never happened, that I suffered through and defended myself. And Mike Scott, my attorney, if he could request to be a speaker here, he's here also, for 4 years. What we were able to, what I think was, there's a couple of things unique about this, but certainly unprecedented. What we were able to show was a coordinated, so let me put it this way. Most of the times when you see these situations, they write it off as there's a rogue agent, a bad apple, like some low-level FBI agent, and then they were able to write it off. And so the agency doesn't itself take a reputational hit. And in this case, they are not able to do that. And the reason why they're not is because we were able to show a coordinated effort between, let's just leave it at minimum, at the SEC, the DOJ, FBI, which is a division of the DOJ, but it's also its own entity. Those three were coordinating. There's a couple interesting things. Number one, the SEC was leading that criminal prosecution against me. The SEC is a civil agency that's outside their jurisdiction, so they shouldn't be leading a criminal prosecution. And the DOJ claimed that they were not involved, except when I asked for data under the Privacy Act. They said they have 14 gigabytes of data. That's, for people who don't know, that's just like a lot of pages, right? That's so for somebody not investigating me. In the interim, they're working with the DOJ and the FBI. And what is really scary about what we found was it was multiple agencies, multiple offices within those agencies, and to the tune of dozens of people that knew, and we know this for a fact, they knew at least approximately 1 year before I was arrested that I did not and could not have committed any illegal act, especially the one that they were fabricating. And we actually found, which also is precedented, we found evidence where the fabricated documents that they were prosecuting me on, which I never signed and I never saw, but they were the basis of the indictment that was came down against me.
So, Stephen, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Stephen Narioff talk about this next claim that you're dropping against the government. Could you just speak about that? This dropping this week against the government?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really very, very, very difficult to sue the U.S. government. They're pretty much immune from all actions, with a very limited exception. And there's a thing called the Federal Tort Claims Act that Congress carved out, I think it was around the 50s or so. And they said, basically, we are giving the U.S. citizens the privilege of suing the federal government if they are harmed by federal employees in extremely limited circumstances. And those circumstances are, there's about 5 or 6 kind of what's called intentional torts. And so in this case, it's like a malicious prosecution or a false arrest, something like that. And it gets even more tedious, and you can't sue anybody in those agencies. It has to be by an agent, basically somebody with arrest power. So you have to find a very specific thing that they did. You have to find an agent that did that specific thing. If it's, for example, a prosecutor.
So what did you find in your federal tort claim that you're going against the government this week?
What we found was actually pretty simple. We found a criminal complaint that was sworn by an FBI agent, and we proved that virtually every single statement that he made, and it was sworn under oath in front of a federal magistrate, was perjured. And we had proof to the extent of each one of those were perjured. We found a secondary thing where we had fabricated evidence that was used against me to indict me that was being sent, and knowingly it was fabricated.
Which agent you talking about? Which agency?
This is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. 2 different offices, the New York office and the Seattle office.
Did you see, Stephen, this video dropped by Eric Cochran yesterday with the FBI guy saying they want to, quote, chop Alex Jones's legs off and, quote, take his money away? Did you see that?
Yeah, yes.
It almost seems like, in some theoretical way, that if what you're saying is true, that this FBI agent just came after you like this to harm you, that there is some admission in some smoke-filled back room to that, they would have said something to the same effect, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And why would they want to come after you? A lot of people don't, a lot of people do know who you are, but for people who don't know who you are, what would be the motivation for the FBI to try to target you this way?
So there was an event that happened between the FTCA and folks in the private industry and the Chinese Communist, an entity very closely aligned with the Chinese Communist Party. And I was one of the original folks at Ethereum that structured that. I was the only one that actually had the information, the knowledge, and the documentation that could unwind that entire. When I say conspiracy, I don't mean in terms of it's a potential. It actually happened, and I actually have the documentation, the knowledge to unwind it. And I was the only person who had that.
We have some people on the air here. I think Alan Dershowitz is here. Alan, can you hear me?
I hear you. Do you hear me?
I hear you. Good. Would you like to comment on Stephen Narioff's tort claim? Are you familiar with that?
Sure, I'm very familiar with it. Look, for 50 years, I have been strongly opposed to the government targeting anybody who is a dissident or unpopular or a whistleblower. As you probably know, I wrote a book called Get Trump, where, although I'm not a Trump supporter, I strongly opposed efforts to try to target Trump in order to influence the election. And my research has suggested that Stephen Narioff has been improperly targeted as a result of his activities in crypto. Crypto is widely misunderstood. It's very controversial, and it's often not sufficiently regulated. And so pioneers like Mr. Nureyev are obvious targets for being prosecuted. In this case, the prosecution failed, but it exacted an enormous toll on him, both from a business point of view and a personal point of view. And so I agreed to be a constitutional consultant on the case. My expertise is in the Constitution and in the law, not on the facts. And so I'm leaving it to Mr. Nureyev and his other lawyers to develop the factual record. But I'm very familiar with the case law and the case law that opposes specific targeting of American citizens by law enforcement. So I'm following the case very carefully and will play an appropriate role at the appropriate time to raise and focus on the constitutional issues.
Hey, Alan, while I have you here, did you happen to see the video, the one that broke on the Federal Reserve today, but the one yesterday involving the FBI, CIA officers saying they want to go after Alex Jones to, quote, take his money away, quote, chop his legs off? Did you see that clip?
Well, I haven't, but that's exactly the kind of thing I'm concerned about. Look, I'm certainly not a fan of Alex Jones. I think things that he said about the shootings and other kinds of things are dangerous and absurd. But my job has been for 50 years to represent the most unpopular, the most controversial, the most targeted by the government, to try to make sure that we never get to a place like the Soviet Union got to in the 1930s, when the head of the KGB said to Stalin, show me the man and I'll find you the crime. That's what targeting is all about, whether it's Alex Jones or whether it's Stephen Nureyev or whether it's Donald Trump. It creates tremendous
Alan Dershowitz, this guy actually said, quote, we can put anybody in jail if you know what to do, unquote. And I guess the question that I'm getting, and Eric Cochran, we both do this for a living every week, we put out these undercover videos exposing, is what can be done? Can Alex Jones sue that guy like Stephen Nureyev is on the Federal Tort Claims Act as a matter of constitutional law? How does that work?
Well, Mr. Nureyev can do it because he was prosecuted, and he can show actual damages and can show the kind of elements that are necessary for relief. Just threatening to go after Alex Jones and saying cut his legs off is a much harder lawsuit to bring. Look, it was Justice Robert Jackson, who was our chief prosecutor at Nuremberg, who was the Attorney General of the United States, who said any creative prosecutor can rummage through the statute books and find something on anybody. And the object of the law is to make sure that it's applied fairly, objectively, only based on criminal conduct, not based on activities that are sought to be unpopular. Look, on Monday, Donald Trump is going on trial for a non-crime. It's just not a crime what he's accused of doing, paying hush money to a former prostitute, although he denies that she was, or that he had a relationship with her, and then failing to report that on various forms. It's just not a crime. It's not a state crime. It's not a federal crime. The prosecution made it up and is going after him as part of its attempt to influence the election. So we're seeing that in front of our very eyes, and what Mr. Nureyev is saying is something similar. It's obviously not as high profile. He's not running for president of the United States, but the point is, if you can get the man running for president, if you can get Stephen Nureyev, a man who has so many patents and has done so many important things for America, then the next person you can get is some obscure individual who doesn't have the resources to bring somebody like me on board a case and have me look at it and have other good lawyers look at it. So we're talking not only about Donald Trump and Stephen Nureyev, we're talking about, John and Joan Smith, average Americans who can be targeted the way Justice Jackson said anybody can be targeted. That's why I'm in this case, and that's my primary interest in the case.
And how would the Federal Tort Claims Act work if successful? Has there been claims that have been successful here? Or how would it work in practice?
Oh, yeah. It can be very successful. It's uphill always to sue the government. But if you can show the right elements and the right facts, you can get it in front of a fact finder, and you can get damages. And the damages can be very, very extensive. And in this case, Mr. Nureyev suffered enormous damages. And so if he even gets a fraction of what he suffered back, it will be a very, very large judgment and will send a very important message to the prosecution. Unfortunately, I have another obligation. So
Thank you, Alan.
And I really would like the people to listen to Mr. Nureyev and his other associates who have much more information about this. And I'll be happy to come back once we develop more facts and once we learn more about the fate of the FTCA claim. And I wish him the best of luck on bringing that case, because it's not only for him, it's for every potential American who could be targeted.
Alan Dershowitz, thanks for joining. Stephen, speak about the facts. Alan's a constitutional law guy, but the facts, the actual evidence, just briefly, and then we'll go to George Papadopoulos, who I feel like this is the FBI raid club. Like, I'm raided, George is raided, you're raided, Eric Cochran's raided. Everyone here has had their door beat in, whether it's diaries or crypto.
James?
What's
Come
that?
on, man. Are you telling me I'm next?
Are you, Nick? Have you been raided by the
I haven't been
FBI?
raided quite yet.
Not yet.
No, dude, I've only been doing this a year. It's too early.
Those are rookie numbers. I've been doing it for 20 years, so you'll be rated soon. Steve, talk about the facts in the court claim. What is the most damning facts that lead you to believe that you were targeted by the U.S. government? The motive facts. Go ahead.
So let me just separate two things. The facts to actually have a successful Federal Tort Claims Act is you just have to have an agent. The agent has to do something improper, and then you have to prove that they didn't have probable cause, or if they did, you have to prove that you can overcome that presumption. That's the claim itself. That's separate, and that's dry and cut. It's usually very, 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 very difficult to do. I think we're able to do it. Now you're asking a separate question. Why do that's what happened to me. I think the question you're asking me is, why did this happen to me? And the best way I could say it is, there was two crossovers. So when you look at if you look at a mind map or a timeline of the SEC, and for those who don't know, we're talking about the Ethereum free pass speech in June 14, 2018. And you look when Bill Hinman from the SEC arrived in May of 2017, and you go forward for the next 3 years, you find two things. You find the fabrication of my case that we've uncovered parallels that almost like within days throughout the years. So when one event happens, a very logical corollary event towards me happens. I'll give you one example. A law firm I had requested in 2018 the Ethereum opinion from 2014. Not sure why they did that. I wasn't in my office, and somebody gave it to them. 2 days later, Joe Lubin met with the SEC, and 7 days after that, I was being secretly recorded and accused of extortion that never happened. So that's one. So there's the timeline matching. There's a second component to this where the people that were involved in giving the free pass to Ethereum, and it's really important, this is called ETHgate, it's really important, I want to bring emphasis to this, that they went after a company called Ripple and their token XRP, and there's a big group of people called the XRP Army. When the people that went after them were the exact same people that were coming after me. And not only that, they were not the kind of people that should be coming after me. And they were clustered together. So, these are, one coincidence could be something, two coincidences could be something, once you get to...
Why do they hate you so much? Just to simple it down for people. Why are you such a threat?
So there's two reasons for that. Number one, the SEC refused to provide guidance to the crypto industry in order to comply with U.S. securities laws. I some other people, but I created what's called the utility token and the ICO. Effectively, what I'm saying is it was a method that allowed people to comply with U.S. securities laws when the SEC didn't want to provide clarity. So that was issue one. And it seems kind of counterintuitive, or an agency doesn't want to give people, the ability to comply with its own laws. But that's what
Stephen, hang on. George Papadopoulos is on, and then I'm going to go to Nick, and Nick, you can kind of talk about this issue and co-host for about 15 minutes before we go back to lightning round, finish up on the ETH-gate. George, are you there?
I'm here, James. Great to hear from you.
George,
and everybody, thanks.
Thanks for being here. George Papadopoulos, what was the name of that book you wrote, George, about the deep state?
That's exactly what the title, Deep State
Just
Target, How
Deep
I
State.
Got Caught in the Crosshairs of the Plot to Bring Down President Trump.
Okay,
That's
so
exactly what it was.
3 issues, George Papadopoulos. Issue 1, the Federal Reserve tape just broke where they're saying that the Federal Reserve principal economist is on hidden camera saying that Jerome Powell's legacy, and this is the guy who writes speeches for Powell, he's saying that Jerome Powell's entire legacy is to be the guy that stops Donald Trump. Issue number 2 is the tape released yesterday by Eric Cochran of the FBI/CIA guy saying, we're going to entrap everybody, we can put anyone in jail. It seems like right up your alley that one of these guys actually said that. And issue number 3 is the Steve Narioff federal torts claim. I'd like to get your reaction on all 3, George Papadopoulos.
Yeah, a lot to cover. Initially, I think what we're discussing here are just various displays of state power against not only political opponents, but individuals who have decided to step out of line, if you will. Many of these cases are at the heart of American political freedom, including Stevens. And most importantly, I just think that the Democrats have really just normalized selective and politically motivated targeting of opponents that they view as threats, whether those are campaign officials, parents, religious figures, crypto individuals who are involved in that space, or a former president. So basically, when you look at it from that prism, and the Biden administration now actively colluding or working in tandem with activist DAs, federal prosecutors, the intel community, and even the Fed, this is all designed to stoke tensions and just basically do Biden's bidding instead of addressing the issues that are affecting the American taxpayer, the border, foreign policy disasters. And I think this is what they are aiming to continue going into this election.
And George, you know, this guy saying, this FBI agent, this is Eric Cochran's tape, saying Eric Cochran is the one who broke. He's still on the space, by the way. Quote, we can put anybody in jail, set them up, we can entrap them, call it a nudge, and we want to take Alex Jones's money away and chops his legs off. George, I'm willing to bet that one of these deep state officials in some room said this about you. It's too bad we didn't get them on camera saying it.
James, you need to work a little harder. We need to get some of these CIA folks, some of the Obama officials, and some of these Biden officials who were working during the Obama presidency to not only set me up and various other campaign officials, but of course to sabotage Trump's first term. That's basically the story that you just described is now at the center of 5 different investigations. You had the Comey investigation, then you had Mueller, then you had Horowitz, then you had the Durham investigation, and now you have members of the judiciary actually demanding that the CIA gives them documents about how Obama orchestrated this criminal conspiracy against our democratic process by involving the CIA and foreign intelligence, including the MI6, potentially Italy, Ukraine, other countries, to bump, as you mentioned, various campaign associates to set them up in a fake conspiracy that never emerged. So it's not really beyond the pale that they're still doing it today, except you're doing great work actually catching them on camera, admitting it, while members of Congress, for some bizarre reason, are just slowly...
Why is it that George Papadopoulos, the members of Congress, are slow? Is that because they have blackmail on them? Or they're just pussies or cowards? Or what is the deal?
You know, at this point, my patience at a personal level is growing very thin. We continue to have these stern-worded letters from members of Congress, and I respect many of these members, especially people like Congressman Matt Gaetz, who, if it wasn't for Congressman Matt Gaetz during the Durham testimony, I certainly think that that entire hearing would have been a complete shit show. But, he basically was the only member who put him on the hot seat to answer some pretty pointed questions. And I just think that they're terrified because what I just described is our intel agencies working with foreign allied intel agencies setting up and framing not only political operatives, but a former president and just dissenters writ large in America. We've seen it with various bombshell reporting coming out regarding January 6th, the infiltration of that situation by federal agents. And Congress, I guess, just thinks that this is too hot of a potato to launch at the American people. They might not think that the American people are ready for it. I completely disagree. I think with the advent of social media and X and other platforms that people are getting their information from, they are prepared for this information. No one's controlling the narrative here.
And George, this is just hot off the press today. Again, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to George Papadopoulos, Stephen Narioff, Nick Sorter's about to come on, Patrick Byrne is here. We're talking about the circle is now complete. Federal Reserve principal economist on tape. George, it seems like the other thing that we see here is sort of savior complex with these officials. Pride comes before the fall. Let's listen to this soundbite one more time. This cut, hidden camera, principal economist released today saying that Jerome Powell wants to be the savior to stop Trump.
He wants to be remembered in history.
You think he wants to be remembered for what he's done? He wants to go down in history.
Yeah.
As what?
As somebody who held the line against like Trump and like somebody who like helped the economy.
This seems to be this sort of pride thing where they're going to be famous, like on Wikipedia, you know, or in Hollywood. That's my read. Is that your read, George? It just seems, and the pendulum shifting where that no longer might be the case. What do you think about that?
This is all about them protecting the institution and not the Constitution, and not fulfilling their oath of office. And we've seen it from the Fed to the CIA to the FBI to the DOJ. All of these various agencies and institutions have become so bloated and so rife with corruption, and these deep state federal bureaucrats, unelected bureaucrats that do not want to lose power. They believe that they are the permanent bureaucracy, that a president, whether it's he or she, comes in once every 4 years, potentially 8 years, and they're recyclable and they're not there to institute change, but they are. And I think that's why you do catch them on camera saying this type of stuff, because this is what they really believe. They do not believe that they are there to serve the American people. They believe that they're smarter than everyone, that they know what's right and wrong, and that they should be the ones who appoint who our leaders are in the United States of America. And this is something that we've seen. It's been an increasingly disturbing trend, at least since the 2016 election, when they weren't held accountable for what they did in 2016. What happened in 2020, James? The CIA, with 51 intelligence agents, willfully suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story that was later propagated through the various mainstream media outlets, and that tilted the election in many ways to Biden, because this information about Hunter Biden's corruption, the Biden family corruption in Ukraine and all around the world, was viewed as some sort of fake news. That cannot continue, and the only way it cannot continue is by transparency and accountability, and that's what you're doing, and that's what people like Steve are talking about. So it's great.
George, are you more afraid of the deep state, or is the deep state more afraid of you?
Well, it's a situation where I've been very vocal, James. Actually, you've been raided by the FBI. I've actually been raided. I've been put through the ringer. But the one thing I did not do is, back down. Actually, they became the more aggressive. I reacted. So I think anybody, including the President of the United States, with all these sham indictments, what he's done is the same thing that we have all done. And that's go on offense, talk about the cases, expose them, tell the American people the facts, and let them come to their own conclusions. And I really think that's why the American people are, voting for Trump the way they are. He's raising the kind of money he is, and why I have recovered the way I have, and I know you have certainly as well.
Very painful. I can speak. That's a subject for another day, the psychological damage and the trauma, but it makes us stronger as long as it doesn't kill us, although sometimes it's a close call. Patrick Byrne, are you there? Patrick?
Yes, I am, James. Good to be on with you.
What's your reaction to these tapes yesterday and today, and also Stephen Narioff's case? I don't know if you've seen the Federal Reserve guy and the FBI guy on tape talking about what they really think.
Well, you asked an interesting question. Where are they coming from? I've spent part of my life around academic communities. And you are right. Jordan Peterson says that really that sort of left-wingism goes with the strongest correlation with a personality trait is, and there's this strange way that people have in speaking in those circles, where instead of making assertions, and defending them, they make other assertions that just take for granted the assertions that are really at issue. So, Powell is comfortable saying something like that he's the man he wants to be known as the man who stopped Donald Trump. He's just taking it for granted that, all good, they're a bunch of snobs. All good people think, well, of course you need to stop Donald Trump. If anyone even asks, why do you think it's the right thing to stop Donald Trump? Oh my God, what a rube. That's basically their attitude. And they're never asked in those kind of circles, they never have to even defend it. They just Twitter to each other over Chardonnay and Brie. And so they don't even want to have that argument. Why do you think that's a good thing? Why do you think that's appropriate, Mr. Powell? That it's your position to override the will of the people. That's crass in their circles to even ask something like that. It just shows you that they're used to being around people that are so aligned. It's such a monoculture, intellectual monoculture, that they're comfortable saying things like that without even understanding how offensive it is.
Yeah, that was my read, Patrick. He's talking about legacy, and he needs to be the savior, and he wants to be famous, and he wants to hold the line. That's only true if most people agree that. But he's talking from a very specific community. You're right about that. That's well said. And
take the word progressive. They're taking for granted that what they want, which is poking holes in the Constitution and creating an authoritarian state, that would be progress. It's like built right into the world. So when I talk to progressives, I always say I'm pro happiness, I'm pro freedom, and to make them, and they say, well, you think you're the only one who likes freedom? And I say, what? You take for granted that you know what progress is. So they've just captured the word. They capture the word progress, and they'll never examine it. And that's the point of view that Powell's speaking from. Of course, progress demands that we stop someone like Donald Trump, a man that the people support. He's not an expert like us. We're such experts. They all think that they have this expertise. They're just total snobs.
Experts. I love that anecdote in your book about if you come in and you maybe quickly tell the anecdote because it's hilarious about someone comes in and you're cheating on your wife and no, honey, experts say that isn't true. That was hilarious.
Yeah. It was just a joke. You pretty much just told it.
I just told the joke. It was a great allegory. But this clip here, this guy saying inside the Federal Reserve, you're just tuning in, listening to Patrick Byrne responding to the Federal Reserve tape here. And then the guy says Powell's a Republican on paper, is what he says. Listen to this.
Even though he's Republican on paper, Democrats don't love him.
Yeah, because it's responsive. I mean, like under Powell, the Fed has changed to think about equity issues like racial issues, think about wealth inequality as part of the mandate, as part of
the Democrats, quote, love him, Patrick. That kind of speaks to what you're saying, that it's all about the adulation from a very specific group of people. Seems to be pursuing that adulation.
It really is. It's really this bare narcissism. They have this hole that needs to be filled in our society. You fill that in, you get admired if you support this very peculiar set of beliefs about what constitutes progress and how to achieve it. And so it's all about them flattering themselves. And they're very God. If you're with those kind of people, I am from time to time, and you even bring up, well, let's address that hidden assumption you have. Why is it that you think that this is progress, or why is it that you think it's necessary to stop Donald Trump? Why is that a appropriate legacy? It's like they've never even considered the question because they just hang out with people. It's an intellectual monoculture.
We have Tristan on the line. Tristan, are you there? Tristan, you're on mute.
I'm here.
Very good. I'd love your comment on the ETHgate, the Tort Claims Act, the FBI video, or the Federal Reserve video, or all of the above, whichever you'd like to comment on.
Sure. So Empower Oversight, the organization that I'm the president of, we have been trying to get to the bottom of ETHgate for a handful of years now, mostly through Freedom of Information Act requests and also through several lawsuits against the SEC. So we were able through those requests to track down that at the heart of ETHgate, this 2018 speech that Stephen mentioned where Bill Hinman declared that Ethereum wasn't the security. that, because of our FOIA requests, we were able to get transparency into the fact that he had been explicitly told by the SEC ethics office at the beginning of his employment there that he should not comment on he shouldn't even be involved in any crypto matters because he had a financial interest in it. So he'd been at the law firm Simpson Thatcher before his time at the SEC and continued to receive money from them due to part of his separation agreement while he was at the SEC. And so he had a financial stake in benefiting Ethereum. And that's what we've been trying to get more info on. So we just recently sued the SEC because they have failed to respond to some of our other FOIA requests. And it looks like there's a lot to dig into. There are other questions with Bill Hinman. But because of these requests, we were able to confirm that the SEC Inspector General is actually conducting an investigation and hopefully will release a report within the next few weeks that will really help to break this more open. And so I think it's going to be really significant for people to see.
When is that report coming out?
We don't know precisely. The only reason they ultimately divulged to us that they were in the final stages is because of our SEC threats to go to litigation. But it's based on a referral we made to them in the spring of 2022. And so they're right in the final stages, they've told us. We think it's likely just going to cover the Hinman referral, but there's also a lot of questions about Jay Clayton, the former chair, that are really similar. He also had a financial interest. His was in Bitcoin rather than Ethereum, and both of them had an interest in spiking XRP. So the IG ought to be looking at that. It's very significant, and so if they don't, we're going to be pushing very hard there for them to dig deeper into that as well.
Tristan, for those of you who hasn't followed this scandal very closely, a lot of listeners here that don't follow the ETHgate, what do you think the most damning piece of evidence is that you've seen? What facts that you've seen that are probably the most horrific that people need to know about?
Well, again, Hinman had these very specific, he had a financial interest, right? So Empower is all about transparency. We represent the IRS whistleblowers in the Hunter Biden case and various other FBI officials or whistleblowers. But usually when you have a conflict of interest like this, there's just the possibility that someone could be benefiting from it financially. What's different about this case is it's abundantly clear that they benefited financially. So it's not just that they were helping their friends. It's not just the kind of crony capitalism you see in a lot of instances. They absolutely had a financial stake in benefiting Ethereum. And so for the SEC's ethics officials to specifically tell Hinman that you cannot meet with officials from your old law firm, you cannot comment on crypto matters because it would be a criminal conflict of interest for you. That I think is incredibly damning because we have uncovered the emails that show that he did meet with people from his law firm and he worked with them to develop the speech in which he said Ethereum wasn't a security. So, again, I'm not a crypto holder or investor or anything else, right? My background was in Justice Department investigations when I was a congressional investigator, but anyone can see here, he was specifically told not to do this, but they made these decisions that hurt, all the many, many, many thousands of XRP investors because as he was going out the door, they sued Ripple, right? And that impact of that was only to benefit Bill Hinman himself, who went back to his old law firm after he left the SEC. So I think that evidence really makes clear that SEC has just been used by these individuals to enrich themselves and their friends at the cost of American
Tristan,
taxpayers.
have you seen any evidence that Gary Gensler is involved in this in any way, or is it just Bill Hinman?
Haven't seen anything about Gary Gensler. He's there. Obviously, people are very unhappy with a lot of his decisions. I think part of the difficulty here, they're obviously going after crypto more fulsomely, right? So it would seem that he does not have any financial interest in crypto, given everything that they're doing. But that you kind of fall back on the typical SEC world, where big banks are usually who are backing the typical SEC figures, and in those instances, the things that the SEC does benefit those big banks to the detriment of crypto often.
Would it be helpful to your case if OMG undercover people got hidden camera stuff into these SEC officials and spoke to the motivations of why they're doing this?
Hard for me to say, James. I think at this point it's mostly an issue of the past to some extent. So it's really kind of a paper trail. Bill Hinman, certainly people are very curious what he would have to say for himself, no doubt. Because again, decisions that he made while at the SEC, he continues to benefit from. He's on boards and other things like that. But I think the current officials at the SEC we're just trying to get them to hand over the documents that really describe what happened in the past.
You're trying to get them to hand over documents that implicate themselves. That's pretty difficult, isn't it?
Well, it's a fair question, but generally it's not clear that it implicates the folks that are there. It's not clear that it's a staff issue so much as these high-level political officials who have since left the agency, right? So Bill Hinman's no longer at the SEC. Jay Clayton's no longer at the SEC. They really were the ones who, because your average SEC official, it looks like, they pursued a course, but they didn't have the same financial interests in these that Clayton and Hinman did.
Well, thank you very much, Tristan, for your comments. I appreciate it. Anything else you want to add?
No, again, we're going to be moving forward with this lawsuit, and I think there's a lot that's going to come out about ETHgate as we get to the bottom of it.
We'll be reporting on it. Thank you very much, and we're going to go to Nick here in a second. It's funny, the Gov't AI on X is reporting Federal Chair Powell resigns amid sting op, which is, I don't believe this is true, but the AI program on Gov't is saying Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has been implicated in a sting operation conducted by an investigative group. The discussion also highlighted Powell's legacy as someone who, quote, held the line against Trump. Nick, are you there?
I'm here, James. How's it going?
Go ahead. Take it away for 10, 15 minutes, and let's talk about this Ethereum scandal, the FBI thing, the Federal Reserve thing, before OMG goes to lightning round and opens it up to the callers.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think that, James, I was just now sort of reviewing, over the past half hour, looking at the video that you released today from inside the Federal Reserve. And, this isn't just some nobody, janitor that happens to overhear a conversation every once in a while. This is a key decision maker within the Federal Reserve that is, talking about the fact that, this is something that we feared happening because the Federal Reserve is one of the most powerful entities in the world by far. People underestimate the amount of power these people have. And if they're focused on wealth inequality and race issues, is the intention to make all of that worse? Because that's exactly what they're doing at this point. The wealth that minorities have since Joe Biden took office at this point is, much lower. There's a huge wealth gap now. The poor people are getting poorer, richer are getting richer. I don't know exactly what they're doing at this point, but why does it take somebody like you and your team to go in there and expose this stuff? What is Congress doing? That's what I don't understand.
I don't know. What do you think those people actually do? What is it? That's not a rhetorical. I mean, what do they actually do? I don't know.
At this point, I can't help but think, are they just, is the Federal Reserve printing money to put into these Congress people's pockets to shut them up? I mean, the government is really terrible at keeping secrets most of the time because they're, usually pretty inept. So I know some of these Congress people have to know a little bit about what's going on in there, but choose to do nothing at all.
Well, Nick, this is good. You always use the word inept. I mean, this guy has a PhD from Duke, and he's so stupid that he tells the girl, and by the way, what they really fear is that there's a lot of new people doing this. This woman has never done this before, and there's many more like her. So that's what they're really scared of. They want O'Keefe to have 2 or 3 people. No. There's 100+ people now. They're not my employees. They're not W-2 employees. They're independent citizen journalists that just strap a camera on and go do it. This is probably one of the more inept things, Nick, that he says.
I'm just really worried that I'm saying stuff like stuff that's classified. I just don't want to.
Okay. So do you deal with classified stuff?
It's all classified, right?
So he's really worried he's going to talk about all the classified stuff that he proceeds to talk about with the stranger he just met. You talk about inept. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, what does a PhD even mean anymore, James? I don't want to insult anybody in the audience that might have a PhD, but, if you look at the amount of quote-unquote PhDs nowadays versus there were before, I don't know how much you can really base your opinion of somebody's intelligence based on those 3 letters after their name. But what I will also say, if this is what this guy is so comfortable and so willing to tell somebody that he just met recently, what are they not telling us? What else are they doing that, is damaging society and pushing a woke globalist narrative that, we haven't been able to see yet? If anybody's going to find it, I'm sure it's going to be you. But, man, it's getting scarier and scarier by the day.
Why do you think they're so willing to spill the beans to total strangers, but in front of the podium they pull the Potemkin lies to the public? Why do you think that dynamic is happening so prevalently right now?
I feel like they desperately want to be able to go to that podium and flex their power, but they know that they're going to end up getting fired. And people, they have been able to manipulate the media to this point to not report on stories that you release, showing these people saying the quiet part out loud. And, if they were to go and do it in front of a podium on the mainstream media, of course, it's a totally different story. They have tried so hard to alienate you and make it seem like you're some sort of right-wing extremist that, they're not even accusing you of doctoring these videos or anything even more or at this point. I know they tried to do that in the past, but it was very easy for you to prove otherwise. But they're trying to paint you as this fringe character, and all of a sudden they seem comfortable with just letting it happen. I don't understand it. It's crazy.
Eric Cochran, are you still there? Eric Cochran's on the line. He's on mute. He did.
Yeah, I'm here.
So have they attacked you with the FBI video? Nick is on here saying they're painting us as fringe. Has the mainstream responded? Has legacy media responded to the FBI tape yet?
Well, actually, there was an article in the Daily Dot today, and they initially said, this is a rare thing, they initially said, oh, there is no evidence this guy worked for the CIA. And then I put him on blast on Twitter and frankly shamed them because we did show the evidence of this guy's acceptance letter to the CIA. Like, you don't get more proof than that. And then they actually did a retracto, James. They issued the correction. They said we were wrong. There's the evidence. So they do try to attack the messenger. I guess maybe we haven't hit quite the point where they're doing hit pieces about me personally like they do to you yet. But I'm ready for that day when it comes.
I feel like things have changed where now they don't even want to do hit pieces because it'll just draw more attention. They have to behave like you don't exist, it doesn't exist. But I don't think that they're going to be able to continue with that. Nick, continue with your comments and thoughts on all the above.
Yeah, well, no, I will go and I'll talk about Eric's video as well. And Eric, great job on doing that. You had a viral video. I know we were talking to Alex Jones people about this today as well. And this was a huge thing that, Alex has been saying for a long time that he's been targeted. And this just serves to prove that, yes, they are actually targeting people like Alex Jones because they don't like what he is saying. They don't like what pretty much anybody up on this stage is saying at this point, and they're willing to go to all these lengths to shut us up and paint us as these absolute idiots. Like I was saying that James has dealt with for the longest time. I deal with it. The amount of hit pieces I still get on me for covering out in Hawaii. I just got one by the local media there the other day painting me as a fringe character. It's insanity, but what I don't understand is why the public, even if they are seeing this stuff, and I think they are seeing it more and more, thanks to X and such, why aren't we finally seeing even Fox News and such come around and start putting this out there? In your opinion, are they in on it?
Can I answer that?
Go ahead.
Patrick Byrne here. Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Sure. In the case of Fox, I can tell you in the case of Fox, they knew that before they settled with Dominion, they already had received evidence through Mike Pompeo, very strong evidence that would let them fight the case. And they, really because of a bunch of political decisions at the board, Paul Ryan is basically the Bush wing of the Republican Party. Spokesman on the Fox board is Paul Ryan. And he and Rupert Murdoch, they decided, his sons, they decided if they fought it, it would end up helping Trump. And they didn't want to help Trump. So they took a dive on that case. And I think that they now more fully understand how easy it would have been to defeat Dominion. But at the time, they didn't even want to fight because they thought it would hurt. It would help Trump, and they didn't want to do that.
So, Patrick, you're saying that their editorial decisions are influenced by their motivation to not help Trump?
Yeah,
Strange.
And I made clear in my book. I was on the inside of some of this. On around July 30th, I was told that July 30th, 2020, I was told by someone between Bill Barr and me. And this is, by the way, James, what you've read is only the magazine. There's a book that has come out called Danger Close. It's twice as long as the magazine, and it's got a lot more in it. Barr I was told on around July 30th, 2020, that he was in a week or 10 days going to go and have a meeting, a 3-hour meeting with Rupert Murdoch, just the two of them. And the fellow who brought me that message happened to die the next day in a plane crash. But if you look at the tapes from August 2020, around 18th or 20th, Fox did a turn, and they didn't, it was Fox, but they turned about 40 degrees, and they got very weak on Trump, and they stopped trying to, they were not rah-rah Trump. They were still Fox, but they totally changed. And for some reason, Bill Barr and Rupert Murdoch got together and agreed to that. And on around August 10th, and it took about a week, and Fox changed its editorial direction. And I think now they're at the position of realizing they were totally destroying their brand, and they've stepped away from the truth so far. I think that they are on the verge of seeing the light and saying that they have to fight this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that they're going to.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. Be optimistic, and hopefully these stories get covered. Eric Cochran, have you been invited on Fox News after your bombshell FBI tape?
I haven't yet, no.
I don't think the last time you were on Fox News was when you did the Pinterest story in 2019, correct?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
I haven't been on Fox News since 2021. I don't think I've physically been on their air. Now, I've investigated. I did one hidden camera video into Fox, one on CNN, so maybe they're upset about that. I don't know. Andrew Breitbart, back in 2011, there was a blacklist. For about 10 years, I was not able to get on Fox. But I think Patrick's right that they might come around. They have to cover it. If it's newsworthy, they're going to have to cover it. That's just the way it is. You have to operate without fear or favor in the news business. That's what you're supposed to do. That concept is so foreign to most people that they can't even understand what it means. Nick, any other comments before we go to lightning round?
Yeah, I want to ask you one question, James. You're doing really good work here, and I mean that sincerely. When Fox News, this multi-billion-dollar news network, they have massive amounts of resources and such, why do you believe they aren't doing what you're doing?
It just takes brass balls if you want to be in the news business. Litigation, I wrote a whole book about that. 30-second version, liability. People do not want to get sued. It's easier to go along to get along, to quote people on the record, to not be skeptical of what information you're spoon-fed. It's just easier to play the game. Now, I'm not saying that they play the game. I'm saying it's easier to play the game. And when you have to be investigative and you got to, record things and expose people and then they sue you, it's a pain in the ass, and it's not always profitable. I actually, I'm a libertarian, I suppose, in some respects, but I'm not sure that the commercial imperative, the profit motive, is completely compatible with truth-telling and journalism. I don't think it's profitable to question everything. But and speaking of profitably questioning everything, Alex Jones just joined. Alex, are you there?
Absolutely, guys. I've been listening for 30 minutes. I'm actually traveling back to Austin today, so I can't stay. I wish I could stay a long time, but I would love to do another spaces with you guys and really focus in on not just what happened to myself, but to President Trump, to James O'Keefe, to countless others, and look back at the Senator Frank Church committee hearings in the 70s and actually look at the legislation and the repeals of legislation that allows the deep state and the intelligence agencies and the corporate media and big tech, which is really the deep state, to do this, because they have lost control of the public's minds. There is a great awakening here. But before I briefly just talk about my case that's broken, that's so big, James O'Keefe's a tough guy, okay? And I'm not kissing his ass, it's true. So he puts it very well. A lot of people just don't want to be attacked or be sued. No, they come after you. They try to put you in prison, or they buy you off. They tried to buy me off many, many times. I was offered Fox News shows 20 years ago, 15 years ago, $10 million a year, book deals, all of it, just to play ball with these guys. And so it's been controlled for a long time, but it was totally illegal previously. So Operation Mockingbird and things were kept at least quasi-secret. Now, from what I've been through with the Sandy Hook thing, I didn't understand when this started 6 years ago what was happening. I thought I was sophisticated. I thought I knew what was going on. But after going through several years of demonization about it and them exaggerating 500 times what I said it did, building a straw man, running thousands of articles, literally thousands of TV programs on international, national, and local news, misrepresenting what I did, claiming I sent people to people's houses, that I peed on graves, that I made all this money off them when I literally barely ever talked about it. They had 22 minutes about me in court. Both judges in Texas and Connecticut defaulted me so that they had hearings on damages where I was already guilty. So this was really happening to me first, and people couldn't believe it. Now with Trump, they've seen these trials like in New York where there's not even a jury. And they go, oh, well, it's a bench trial. Well, no, you're supposed to be able to pick a bench trial. Trump didn't pick a bench trial. Neither did I. The judges just again found me guilty and then had a hearing on damages. But after they won both the rigged cases, a big PR firm out of New York went public, and they pulled most of it after 3 days because it backfired. They went, we're a great PR firm, one of the largest, and we've done a great job at targeting Mr. Jones. He's a bad guy. We went and found statements he made years ago, and then showed them to the public so there'd be awareness of how bad he was. And then we coordinated with the media and did this to him. And it's a model to take out all the rest of the right wingers. And our next target is Tucker Carlson. So they actually said that. So what they do is they build a straw man, they demonize you, they say you're attacking people, they're going after families, or whatever thing they attack you with, and then they say, why won't you stop? Why won't you stop for 2 years? Then they sued me, but in discovery, didn't find anything that they claimed was there. So then they defaulted me, saying I hadn't given them any discovery. So I've been up close. It would take an hour to go over it all, but this was coordinated. That's why I've been saying it for 5-6 years by the CIA and by the FBI, because I have sources in the CIA, but also I knew about Obama setting up the Countering Foreign Disinformation Propaganda Act right before he left office in 2017 in January. And they were admitting they were doing this. And so they had Georgetown University behind the scenes quarterbacking a lot of it with the CIA, with the narrative, with the PR firms, the media. Then they had the Justice Department and the FBI joined the suit, and they admitted on the stand, had an FBI agent sue me. I never said his name. None of my reporters said his name. Never published his face. I didn't know who he was till he sued me, but he said he got one phone call after Sandy Hook asking if he was a real person. Well, that wasn't me first questioning. The internet did. I just covered it some. And so he got $94 million with money that doesn't exist, a part of the $1.5+ billion judgment, because the FBI went, he made this on the stand, they went and brought him to the, quote, Koskoff law firm that's heavily involved with Senator Blumenthal and the rest of them, with this lawyer, Chris Maddy, who's a former federal prosecutor whose specialty is sending Republicans to jail, like the governor of Connecticut 6-7 years ago. So these were all federal prosecutors, okay? So every step of the way, I've been dealing with feds. 2 years ago when I declared bankruptcy, to show them I wasn't hiding money, to show them it was all a lie, that none of the stuff in the press was real. They do this like 1 out of 1,000 times.
Hey, Alex, Eric Cochran's on the line, the guy who did the video that the FBI is talking about you. Take your money away, chop your legs off. Eric, Alex is here. I don't know if you had a question for Alex real quick.
And I know I was ranting. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead, Alex.
No, you go ahead. It's just that, go ahead and make your point. I mean, I know I'm ranting. I just want people to know I've been run over by this thing and backed over it 15 times. I know the treads on the tires, and I'm telling you, this is totally organized out of the CIA and out of the Justice Department. And in Texas and in Connecticut, they had the same scripts in their hands. I saw the judges in their hands, the same scripts, the same things we couldn't say, the same things to say to me, the same stunts to pull, Perry Mason garbage, where they would preach at me and scream at me and yell at me, and then I couldn't talk. And so they are literally weaponizing the courts. And now the FBI is setting up a direct tax system where their agents are going to be parties to these lawsuits against independent press, and then they will get massive windfall money directly into their agents. So you cannot make up the magnitude of the organized level of this. And so this oblivious guy, who's just mid-level, but obviously he's been in this culture and heard them shooting their mouths off, is an incredible window into what's actually going on. And this dwarfs the weaponization hearings. It dwarfs everything we've seen so far, and it shows that it's not just government coordinating big tech and things. They're coordinating law firms. They're coordinating Lawfare. The last thing I want to say is that in my bankruptcy hearings, you're like, what's that to do with this? In my depositions, I've been deposed over 10 times because the Fed just keep ordering it. There are federal agents in the deposition room from the Justice Department under a little used rule of the U.S. Trustee's Office. So they send criminal officers to these events and tell me if I say one thing wrong, I will be charged and sent to federal prison. Of course, I've only told the truth, but that's what I'm saying.
Right, that's part of what this guy says is like, he can do entrapment, right? Like James said earlier, the FBI, the CIA, they can legally get away with entrapment. This guy even has a code name for it, the nudge. And, and what he speaks to, we've seen, the effects of this, but, he speaks to, the motive. It's not, just they're going through part of their job. He's talking about, motive. The idea is take out Alex Jones.
Absolutely. And I know you had a question. I want to say great job to the wonderful folks at Sound Investigations and just, following the great footsteps of James O'Keefe. And I think it's going to be the things that O'Keefe's doing, you're doing. They're going to stop this tyranny, like what you guys did with Pornhub, showing them saying we target children. They got a criminal investigation. They're basically offline in Texas. They're in deep trouble. And I mean, you guys are the real unsung heroes, but it is the courage that you have that allows this to happen. And I just want to salute you for myself and my family and everybody else, because when you tell people it's the CIA, it's the FBI, they find it hard to believe. 2 years of audits by the IRS. But then the IRS actually felt bad and said to us, this happens, again, 1 out of 1,000 times. They audited me for 5 years. Going back 5 years, they audited me for over a year. They returned to us $4.2 million 2 months ago in a cashier's check, and I deposited it into the bankruptcy, so it's gone into that whole system of the court. But imagine who gets a $4.2 million tax return without asking for it from the IRS. So there are still some good people. I can't believe I'm defending the IRS. I mean, I've met with high-level federal judges. I've met with FBI agents, U.S. Marshals just in the last year, top magistrates, top judges, about the human smuggling, the human trafficking, public cases they want me to cover. I know a lot of you have. I know James has been in Texas. I'm sure he's talked to some of the same people. But they're desperate. They're all compartmentalized. It's only special units in D.C. and the Southern District of New York and a few other places that run all this persecution. So I'm not here to even say that I'm at war with the FBI, but I am at war with the criminals that have hijacked it at the top. And it's not a butt-kissing thing. It's easy to say just abolish the FBI, and it probably should be. A bunch of these agencies should be. But my point is that most of the good agents are compartmentalized and have their hands tied to even
Hey, Alex,
traffickers.
Alex, this is James O'Keefe.
Yeah.
You're interviewing me. I'm going to ask you 2 very important questions. Number 1, are they good people if they work for an evil organization?
No, I mean, that's why they're desperate and leaving in droves, and that's the paradox. The globalists know by having critical race theory in the military and poison shots and the same stuff in the FBI, that the good people are going to get out, and they actually want to run them out. So that's the paradox. But I agree. I don't know how you answer that question. That really is a paradox. What do you think, James?
That's the question of the day. Second question, is that guy on video that said that he can, quote, chop your legs off and, quote, take your money away, is that the worst you've seen, on video about you from the federal government? Is that the worst that anyone's ever seen?
No, I was in mediation, but I believe it was criminal, so I've talked about it now. I was in a first mediation 2 years ago in Connecticut, up in a high-rise right there on the coast, and I'm in a meeting with a former top judge in mediation and the head of this law firm. And he looked at me and he said, there's nothing you can do. We are the mafia. We run everything. Do you understand? And I was like, no, I understand you're the mafia. But then he just looked at me and laughed at me. He said, we are the mafia, like the Godfather, and we run you, and it's over. And basically, we don't want money, and we're going to get you.
And you didn't record that. You don't have a recording of that.
No, I mean, you're in a mediation.
Right.
And you go sign agreements that you're not going to be in it. And I talked to lawyers. The only reason my lawyer's like, I guess go ahead and talk about it, is because it's criminal, in my view.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, he literally sat there at the end of this big table in this huge boardroom and said, you're a nobody. We're going to crush you. We're like the mafia. We own this state. We own New York.
See, Alex, they wouldn't say that to me because I would record it whether it's a mediation or not.
James, I didn't know he would start shooting his mouth
That's
off.
true. That's true.
We got to get Alex a button cam. We got to have him wear black button shirts all the time.
We're going to need to get you some equipment, Alex, depending on what state you're in. I know you got to go, Alex. Anything else you want to say about that?
Well, I just want to say, James, you're a hard guy to get on. I even quit trying, but I got a big show, and I wish you'd come on a more routine basis.
I would love to. I'd love to talk about this Federal Reserve tape. We run out of time, but talk about that too. We'll talk.
And I'd love to get a like a Saturday thing with you and Mario and everybody. Hopefully get Elon in here. But just in closing, because you guys will let me dominate here real quick. The reason I'm so desperate and just literally chomping at the bit and like speaking as fast as a auctioneer is I've been through this, folks, and I'm not a victim. I'm not here whining because I'm butthurt and I don't people feel sorry for me. It's indescribable, all the stuff they've done. It would take 2 hours if I just wrote notes out just to tell you all the stuff being followed home. We've got it on tape, about the black sedans, harassing my family. They've sued my mother, my dad. They've sued my wife. They've harassed my employees. They've done incredible dirty tricks. They've hacked into things. They have, because it's the CIA and the Justice Department working through PR firms, law firms, corporate media, and big tech, who's basically like this NSA. You just opt in to be spied on by it. And they're bullies. And the good news is, I'm not here telling people this to intimidate them. Their intimidation is coming down. Bullies in the end always get defeated. This is the United States of America. We've just been asleep. And I believe that we weren't intimidated, that the Americans are just like me, my fellow Americans, and that when they understand what's happening, we're going to stand up peacefully and take this country back. But that's the bottom line of what's going on here, and God is real. The timing of sound investigations, this just happening 3 weeks ago, and the perfect timing of this coming out right when my bankruptcy and the final mediation is next week, and all this is going to be decided whether InfoWars goes on in the future or like Veritas gets taken over by the bad guys, and I'll just pop right back up. But it'll be hard for my crew for a while to try to bring most of them with me. But I mean, this is very serious times, and this could not have been a more perfect time. So I'm very thankful to all of you, and I'm thankful to Mario, and I'm thankful to James O'Keefe, just everybody here. God bless you all. But folks, this is real tyranny. This is real fascism, and we've seen a bunch of members of Congress that saw this report and what just happened. I'm going to be covering the Federal Reserve thing when I get back in Austin tomorrow and the next day. So James, please come on. That's huge, giant news. I don't want to try to overshadow that. It's all part of the same system. They've got a corporate coup over our banking, over our media, over our privacy, over our government. And it's time to stop the corporate coup. It's time to stop the globalists. It's time to restore the republic. God bless you all. But please follow me at Real Alex Jones.
All right, Alex Jones. I was gonna ask another question, but it would just go too long. I guess the rhetorical question is, how is he strong enough to deal with all that? Eric Cochran.
James, I'm still here. I can answer it quick if you want.
Yes, I mean, that's what I get asked, and Trump is on a different level. If he's the number one target, you're obviously in the top 5. So how do you psychologically deal with it is my question.
The worst part is seeing him hurt my family, and I'm not going to spend an hour on that. It's been bad. It's been really nasty. My dad's got medical problems, and I'm going to leave it at that. Pretty serious ones, and they literally depose him all the time and harass him and call and do terrible things just because he was involved in a supplement company with me. Has nothing to do with running my office, and so it's hard to not become vicious and evil like they are and use dirty tricks like they do. It's not hard for me to not want to quit, because I don't want to quit. I want to fight even harder, but I can't be a bad guy like them, so I've got to control myself and talk myself off the ledge sometimes. And it just makes me realize our children and their future literally are going to be totally enslaved if we don't stop these people. And so their intimidation, their attacks has the opposite effect. I told my wife in closing, when we got my second wife, when we got married 8 years ago, I said I've been doing talk radio for 20-some years at that time. Now it's 30 this month. And I said, I just want to write books and make a few films and maybe do a podcast once a month. I've just been doing, for decades, talk radio 4 hours a day. I love InfoWars, so I'm going to hand it off. I kind of want to just be more like a guru guy and really do polished stuff. And, instead of just constant, banging away, just because I love the job, but after a while, it's become a grind. I really don't enjoy it. I enjoy the special reports. I enjoy being on other people's shows. I like doing new stuff. My own personal show, I kind of get sick of. And so I was already going to be, and I promised her, I said, baby, in 3, 4, 5 years, we'll phase out of this, and I'm going to phase purely over to podcasting, because talk radio, I was telling her, it was starting to become, fading away, which is really faded away now, and moved totally to the web. And then I'm still here. So the weird thing is they're attacking me when I already see the Great Awakening happening. I already could see that I could kind of withdraw and not be the tip of the spear anymore, just because I want to, live to be 80 or 90, not die of a heart attack at, 60 or something, because this is stressful, as you guys know. And so now they forced me through just, necessity for my country and my honor to fight them with everything I've got. So now I fight harder than when I was 30 years old and had 10 times the energy, because I'm literally fighting for my life. And I want Americans and others to know you're fighting for your future and your life and your destiny. This is real fascism, folks, run by a bunch of globalists, okay, using communist tactics at the grassroots. This is real, okay? This is damn real. And I know America's getting that now. So the reason I don't back down is because I can't back down. Great question, James. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you.
Alex Jones, quote, fighting for his life. That's probably very profound. I've experienced it. We're going to go to Eric Cochran for 30 seconds, and then Steve Narioff, last word on the ETHgate before we go to my favorite lightning round, 15, 20 minutes. We're going to call on a lot of people, 30 seconds per person. That's the way we like to do it. Cochran, Jones says he's fighting for his life. Eric, you've been raided by the FBI with the Ashley Biden case. Come full circle here. The Ashley Biden person who found the diary, 1 month in prison, 3 months house arrest. That was traumatizing. How do you psychologically deal with the attacks, Eric Cochran?
I suppose I just have to keep thinking about the future, right? Like we can't affect that. We just have to learn the lessons from it and keep moving. They try to hit us with lawfare. I was thinking about that again yesterday. They try to put you through millions of dollars of legal bills and, drag it out for years, and then that's the real punishment. So you just can't let it stress. It's like you and me, we're trying to do undercover journalism. We got to keep it going. So you just got to think about what you can affect.
Legal bills, a lot of the same lawyers seem to be involved in all these things, because whether we win or lose, the lawyers still get paid. I think raising the millions of dollars in legal fees is probably is that the most difficult thing, Eric?
Yeah, I appreciate it, James. Yeah, definitely.
Paying lawyers, he appreciates it because we're raising money to pay the lawyers. Veritas fired me, and I still got to pay all the legal bills for the journalist at Veritas. Can't make this shit up. I would second that. I actually think paying lawyers is the hardest part about doing what I do. What we're running at Veritas was $5 million in legal bills, $6 million a year in legal bills. $6 million. It was almost equivalent to our payroll for 80 people. And those lawyers get paid, whether they win or lose. In fact, more motions, more money. More problems, more money. Isn't that a song? So I actually think that is, Eric, the most difficult part. But thanks to all of you, we have a nonprofit now, Citizen Journalism Foundation. You can donate. It's tax deductible. Eric Cochran, my friend, doing a huge story yesterday on the FBI. Today, a new citizen journalist swiper with the Federal Reserve Bank. And Stephen Narioff, back to you, sir. Just a couple more minutes before we go lightning round. If you want to say, a lot of people talking about ETHgate, your final word.
Sure. So I think it's really important. The second reason I was targeted, finishing your answer, is I actually have the documents that can unwind this whole ETHgate saga. And so it's important that that gets out. But the other important thing is that these are multiple agencies. So there needs to be an independent investigation that's not tied into any one of these agencies, and looking into the absolute coordination of these agencies, why they were going and why they were doing this. And let's make no mistake about it. What was the end goal here? And it's the control of the monetary and financial system. And then you throw in the Chinese Communist Party knowingly being a part of this, And I don't want to say that they co-opted our government, but like it's hard to find another way of saying this. And so an independent investigation needs to come in. And I'm just in final saying, I'd like to say, first of all, Alex, thank you for coming on. I relate so much to what you were going through. I went through it. That nudge to me was actually a cliff. James, thank you. We experienced it. Mario, thank you. George, thank you very much. Patrick, this is the key, I think. We haven't had this before. We haven't had so many people that are outspoken and willing to speak out against this, and we have the will of the people behind us. So this, all of us coming together, it's not any one of us individually can do this. So I think if we do this more, and we get the right administration and this rogue administrative state can be pulled back in.
Thank you, Stephen. And it's quite providential. Jerome Powell is trending in the United States on X after this investigation released today, the day after the FBI investigation by Eric Cochran, and on the same day that Donald Trump posts, quote, inflation is back, the Federal Reserve wants to protect Biden. This is remarkable. You can't make this stuff up. We're going to go to lightning round. That's 30 seconds a person, just after this short message.
I've had it with all my personal and private information being exposed and exploited by big tech and big government, so I'm joining my friend Eric Prince, and I'm switching to my new unplugged phone. Protect your privacy. Get your very own unplugged phone. Go to unplugged.com/OMG. That's unplugged.com/OMG. Take your privacy back. Unplugged.com/OMG.
I'm actually meeting with a source. I can't tell you where or when, but I'm meeting with a source tomorrow that's very, very, very high up. Like the Ed Snowden is to the NSA as this person is to their respective organization. And that person is transferring me all the secret documents tomorrow. I'm very excited. And I communicate with these people over sometimes Signal. I have this phone, this unplugged phone. It's closed circuit. They can't use the user ID thing. So I would recommend using a device like that. We have to be very careful about being surveilled. Okay, let's go to the phones. Here we go. Anything can happen. I'm an open book. The only thing people say, oh, Keith, you keep secrets. The only secrets I keep are two things. Number one, the names of our donors. You'll have to waterboard me, and if you torture me, I might give those away. Number two, the names of my sources. I have a First Amendment right to protect those people. You get angry with me. Tell us who you met with. I'm not going to tell you who I met with because that's sacrosanct to the ability for me to do what I do. It's a freedom of association issue. It stems back to the 1954 Supreme Court case against the NAACP. I'm not going to release the names of my donors. Everything else is fair game. You can ask me anything you want. You can talk about anything you want. My only rule is you have 30 seconds to make your point. So let's go to, who shall we go to, team?
Go with Stealth.
Stealth, go ahead. You're live. Unmute yourself.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much. And I just want to say thank you to James for your investigative research. And I know some of the people up here. This Jerome Powell situation, what I see is that these DEI hires that are pushing and promoting DEI research and materials now in the financial services industry, as was displayed by this guy's CV, is more of a feature and not a symptom of the fact that there's a lack of discernment and testicular fortitude for these individuals to place the needs of American people and their needs for financial help over their Trump derangement syndrome. And I really didn't think there was such a thing as TDS. I thought it was just, like a moniker that we were using. But you can see based on the conversation he had regarding and sharing like secrets about his conversations about Jerome Powell, that he really, it was more important to not lower interest rates, which are like 29% for Americans right now, and they're struggling, rather than, sticking one to Trump, because they didn't want to give Trump a win on the financial side of things. So I think that's pretty concerning, and I'm gonna leave it there for now. Thank you.
Yeah, testicular fortitude. I love that. I don't know where you
can use.
I'm going to borrow that. I'm going to plagiarize.
You can have that. The other thing you can also borrow for a little bit, even though it's trademarked for me, is that the cheapest sex is often the most expensive. So for those men that are out there, I don't want to bust up James's efforts or others. But you look at Eric Swalwell or some other individuals, you have to have some discernment who you're meeting up with in terms of ladies, because you don't want to end up giving away, U.S. government secrets or intellectual property, or even ruining your own personal life because you think, she likes you more than what the information you're providing her. So people need to realize that sometimes the cheapest sex is the most expensive. It's better to get married than to be wandering the streets of the DC restaurants to be handing out information that puts you in, ends up you being, the conversation of a Twitter space.
Yeah,
So that's all I would have to say on that.
Oldest profession in the book. Oldest profession in the book. Cheapest sex, most expensive. It reminds me of the old Winston Churchill proverb or adage where he says, "Would you have sex with this guy for, $5 million?" He says, "Well, it depends. Would you have sex with her $5? Well, what do you think I am? We've already established that, madam. Now we're just haggling about the price."
Exactly.
So goes back to My Price Is My Life, that Alex Jones said that people have tried to buy him off. I don't think they're going to try to buy me off because, I would record that shit. Let's go to Miss Silence DeBetter. What are with these names?
Thanks, James.
Go ahead.
I know you said that last time. Okay, it's about Benjamin Franklin. He wrote in when he was 16 to his brother's newspaper about all sorts of, political stuff, and he wrote as Mrs. Silence Dogood.
Got it.
So,
Go ahead.
yeah.
You're alive in front of hundreds of thousands of people. What do you have to say?
Thanks, James. I just have to say that I'm so grateful for your work and Sound's work and the fact that we have X, because I'm in a book, The Secret Life of Bill Clinton from '97. It's talking about the corruption in the DOJ and the FBI and CIA, and we finally have somewhere and someone like yourself, Alex Jones, whoever, and now X to discuss it on and really actually care and make a difference. And I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the kind comment. Let's go to Liberty Cerulean. Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you, James. I want to thank Alex and Eric and others for having the courage to share their powerful stories of government overreach and persecution. I think it's clear that there's an urgent need to support these people who are being targeted. That's why I'm involved in a grassroots movement that aims to assist Donald Trump, who, as we all know, is the number one target of our government's oppressive actions. So I was wondering if anyone here has insights or suggestions on how grassroots movements like ours, Save America DJT on Ethereum. Sorry, Steve. I know how you feel about Ethereum. How can we build solidarity and create tangible change?
Well, I think the way to build solidarity and to create tangible change is to get more hidden camera videos like the one Eric Cochran released, because everything else seems to be kabuki theater. And I would recommend that people follow in the footsteps of this young woman. By the way, we're giving her a $5,000 check. Actually, more than that, because the video already has a few million views. $5,000 is going to this citizen journalist. And by the way, Alex Jones said earlier in the program, he said that some guy in Connecticut said, "We are the mafia," right? Paraphrasing, "We are the mafia, we own you." Can you imagine if that was on video? Don't you want to see that? So I think the world's changing, privacy's changing, and we should be recording everything. That's the only thing left that matters, in my opinion. Let's go to Digital Asset Investor. No, who's next? Do Funny Donald. Go ahead, Do Funny Donald. You're live.
Well, I gotta say, quite frankly, this is a tremendously powerful discussion. I love what I'm hearing. We gotta fight back against the government that keeps trying to grab us by the assets all the time. My assets, my choice, and quite frankly, it makes me cranky. That's why I'm so glad that Liberty just talked about Save America DJT. You know what? You can look at the profile. That's my profile. I've got a pinned video about it if you want to learn more. But so far, we've donated $250,000 of ETH to Donald Trump's legal expenses because they're trying to grab us by the assets all the time. And we got to band together, use the benefits of DeFi, and fight back.
Mr. President, this is a principal economist. Laurel Gizmo says you're crazy, says you're dumb, says the legacy is to fight against you. Listen to this tape here.
It's a crazy person. It's very clear. I mean, he's a dumb guy.
What?
I mean, just like what you say about him. Like, that's
what?
The same thing as you say about Trump. You would say, like, Trump is just weird.
He's talking about how Powell's legacy is to fight against you. Your reaction to this latest tape inside the Federal Reserve.
Well, I gotta say, first of all, if he's ever on Tinder, everybody is swiping left. They are usually swiping left because he's a horrible person. And everybody would swipe right on me because I'm gorgeous. So I think it's all a big cabal. I think it's usually disgusting, and we gotta fight back. That's what I think, and I'm very strong about this.
All right, that's the president's response. Let's go to the next person. Who we got on the line here? Next speaker. There's so many requests, but we have to. Digital? Digital, are you there? Can you hear me? We got so many requests, I'm trying to add them all. How about, let's see, who do we have on the air here? Next person up. Give us a moment. Technical difficulties, lots of people on. Captain, go ahead. Can you hear me? Captain, you're live. Go ahead. We're still connecting. There's like so many requests on this space, but we're trying to get the request processed. Here we go. Aussie, can you hear me? You're live on the inside with James O'Keefe. Can you hear me? Aussie, are you there?
And just driving.
All right. Can you hear me?
Thanks for. Yeah, I can. Thanks for having us up again.
What do you have to say? You got 30 seconds.
All right. Well, I was just going to. I saw that you nearly had a digital asset investor up, and he was one of the YouTubers I spoke about the other day. Best to get him up rather than me, but I think he was actually pointing to the fact that actually on this show, Marielle Nafal's show, about 6 months ago, the general of the XRP army, John Deaton himself, who's currently running for Senate against Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts, taking on Gary Gensler's boss herself. He was on this show and he was talking about a VC firm that's quite heavily involved in the Heathgate scandal, and he was actually sort of cut off mid-sentence, and then about 20 seconds later the space resumed, and it's a totally different topic. So can we just check in and see what happened on that, please?
All right, we'll check in with that. We got only about 5 minutes left, and I want to get a few people in. How about, let's see, I follow the Gray Rider. Go ahead. You're live. Going once, going twice.
Can you hear me?
Yes, just in time. Go ahead.
Hey, wanted a question for Alex Jones.
I think Alex left the space, but you can. Oh, this Alex is back in the space. Go ahead, ask your question.
Did you find a law firm that will help you with the FBI, CIA persecution?
Did Alex Jones find a law firm? I don't know if Alex is still on. Can you hear us, Alex? A law firm to help out with the prosecution? We're not sure.
Yeah, I was listening to the Benny show earlier, and he was looking at several law firms. I was just wondering if you found
James, I'm here. Sorry about that. Can you hear me, James?
Yeah, the question, Alex, is have you found a lawyer to help you with these cases involving the FBI, or a law firm that you like working with? Because lawyers are very difficult people to work with.
Well, that's a great question. Just to be clear, that's why I ducked out earlier. I'm actually packing right now to go to the airport, come back to Texas. But I've been listening, riveting stuff. I've been talking to a lot of different law firms. There are a lot of law firms that want to do a civil rights suit on this. With what they've done, there's a lot of political action groups and conservative groups are obviously interested. And so that's a good thing now that kind of we're in the season of people finally understanding how much control there is, how much manipulation there is, how much deep state activity there is. And so that's really the good news, is that watching them completely persecute Trump and absolutely, try to keep him from being able to run for office and try to take him off the ballot, and all these false criminal charges, has really woken people up. So information's coming out right at the wrong time. Sorry, I was carrying some bags off the car when you guys asked for me, so I went ahead and hit the button, loading bags here. And so I am talking to different law firms. It'll obviously take a while to develop exactly what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. But there is a major case. But I'm not even really doing it for money, though there'll have to be money in the judgment to pay with the lawyers. And before whatever extras there, I'll give to charity. We're doing it for everybody because we've got to stop this secret persecution by this third world-esque KGB system against the people. Does that answer your question?
Yep. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate that. All right, let's go to Colorado as a red state. Go ahead. Your hand is raised.
Thanks, James. Okay, so I heard you talking about earlier about it costs like $6 million a year for the lawyers to do this stuff. What if you actually knew the law? And if you're paying like 80 people right now, and Alex is paying some people right now, and I'm glad he's listening, there is a course called howtowinincourt.com. Please write that down. It's TO, howtowinincourt.com. And Dr. Graves, he's a 41-year bar attorney. He's put this course together. It's something online. You could pay somebody, just an employee, sit them down in front of that course. They could go through it in one 40-hour work week. They could easily get through the entire course. It teaches you court rules, procedures, just everything on how to be your own lawyer and actually be better than a bar attorney. It teaches you stuff where you're like, oh my God, if I knew this stuff, I'd never hire a bar attorney. Stuff like where, your attorney is supposed to be sitting in that courtroom objecting, because if they're not objecting, then it's not held over for appeal. And so they're sitting there in the lower court screwing up your appeal by not objecting. And when you get somebody that you trust to learn this course, they'll turn around and start telling you all this crazy stuff that bar attorneys are doing. And I would also recommend for Alex.
All right, sir, we gotta cut you off because you only got 2 minutes. I appreciate that, but I mean, I'll just say that, man, I've been
Dr.
through.
Graves on
I
your
appreciate
show,
that.
please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. 30 seconds or less, ladies and gentlemen. It's the most important skill you'll ever learn. Leadership is communication. Communication is leadership. But on your point, I do think that the legal process will chew you up and spit you out. And as someone has been to jury verdict twice and incarcerated and on probation and interrogated and cross-examined, deposed, it's tough. And I think the system is broken and the lawyers profit off it. It's a disgrace. It's a national disgrace and something I'll be looking into further. We got like 1 or 2 minutes left. So let's go to 1 or 2 more people. What do you think? Who should we go to? Francis? Mm-hmm. Francis, are you there?
Hey, James. Yeah, I'm here. Thank you for having me on. Longtime fan, Alex. I've followed you since the AmericanUnderground.com/forum. But anyways, I wanted to say, not only are the agencies and private powerhouses like the Fed and the SEC going against nationalists, they're using regulatory capture to shut down American industry and conservative companies. Regulatory capture is huge. We need to investigate this and shut this down. SEC Gary Gensler has captured Ripple and has kept them in court for the last 3 years. Please look into this, and thank you for doing what you did.
Are you asking me to look into Gary Gensler? Is what you're asking to release a hidden camera investigation on Gary Gensler? Would that be helpful?
No, I'm asking you to please talk to Ripple, to Brad Garlinghouse.
How about to Gary Gensler directly? Why don't we just do an investigation into him? What do you say?
That would be awesome, but he's such a slimeball. I don't think we'd make much progress there.
Slimeball? Well, why don't we expose that he's a slimeball?
Well, that would be cool, but we all know it.
We all know it. So how many American? Okay, we all know it. This is another common. First is nothing ever happens to these people, and number two, we all know it. Let me ask you a question, sir. If I actually did a real poll, how many Americans do you think actually know who Gary Gensler is? Be honest.
You're absolutely right. I would say anywhere from 5 to 8%.
Okay, but you just said a minute ago, quote, we all know it. So it isn't true that we all know that Gary Gensler is a slimeball. Frankly, 95% of American people have no idea who Gary Gensler is. So with all due respect to the people in the conservative movement, you guys need to take a step back, just like people on the left. In this tape with the Federal Reserve Bank, and they're all like in their own little ghetto, their own like left-wing ghetto. Sometimes the conservatives can also be in their ghetto. I would even say 99% of the American people, what's the over-under, 99.9, do not know who Gary Gensler is. And as far as getting Gary Gensler on tape, let's just say, stay tuned. Okay, thank you all.
Awesome.
I've run out of time. This is it. This is the end. I'm sorry. We need boundaries. We got to go. I'm in the field. Thank you all. This has been amazing. Stay tuned for the next edition of On the Inside with James O'Keefe. What an amazing program. We had the FBI thing yesterday. We had the Federal Reserve today. We got Trump posting it. Something crazy is going to happen tomorrow. I'm going to go meet with my next deep throat source. I got so many deep throat sources. That's not the porn thing. That's the whistleblower thing. And I'm using my unplugged phone, which I encourage you all to buy because they support our mission, and we need people to support our mission. Let's go, Gary Gensler. Stay tuned. Take care. Bye-bye.